Hi, everyone, and welcome back to class. Today we'll be discussing generalist social work practice. Generalist social work practice can include a wide array of approaches with different theories and emphasis. So, today we're going to talk about some of the theories that guide generalist social work practice, as well as the change process. So, the process social workers use to when they're working with clients. And then we'll also include advocacy in this lesson as well. Before we get into generalist social work practice, we're going to talk about the changing workforce. We're going to look at social work as a profession and how, even if you're not majoring in social work, there's opportunities for you to use social work practice in your workplace or your future workplace. A social work career in the world of work involves embracing people's individuality and needs as a matter of their basic human needs, dignity, and their civil rights. So, as you can see, if you're going to be working with people, for people, or around people, you'll be able to embrace what we learn in this course with the work that you will do. So, as we think about the current trends in social work practice, we're realizing that things are changing. More social workers are working from home as jobs have become more flexible with their work arrangements. And also, individuals are offering telehealth. So, they're providing therapeutic support to individuals in the comfort of their home, which has seemed to be very effective in allowing people to get access or timely access to care, as well as giving them a safe space to be able to talk about the things that are important to them. We also know that there are different types of social work opportunities that even if you're not in social work, but perhaps you're majoring in social work, so you're getting the knowledge and skills of social work practice, there's opportunities for you to do part-time work with us. Perhaps if your major is in a social science arena, you may be able to do contract work with the social work agency where you can gain more experience but also increase your income. I've added some notes here about different social insurance programs that are available regardless of your area of work. These programs are available to you, and many social workers are involved in making sure that as workers in our communities, you are given access to programs that can support your well being and your overall productivity in the workplace. So I've included some notes here. I want you to take a look at them, read them over as they apply to each one of you who are either in the workforce or plan to enter the workforce soon. The next two slides have discussion questions that I have assigned to certain students so that you can really discuss the workplace and how you see certain critical areas in your practice. As we are moving through our semester and getting to know one another, I wanted to take time to honor each of your names. Names play such a unique part of who we are. Please take a moment to watch this brief video where students describe their names and its origin. After watching a video, I want you to do the same. Tell us where you got your name from, whether it's your preferred name, legal name, whichever one you will want to share. Please take a moment to let us honor you and get to know you on this slide.
My name, my identity.
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 My name is Cynthia Evelina Hernandez, and my mother gave me that name because she wanted to name me Cynthia Lina, like a princess, but she decided to split it into two, so now it's Cynthia Evelina Hernandez.
My name is Manbir, and today I found out that my name means that I care about other people.
My English name is Michelle. My parents gave me the name Ngọc, which means Jade River, because it was supposed to be given to me to give me good fortune, and I guess it kind of does.
My name is Angel Gustavo Silva Moreno. Angel means messenger of God. My two last names come from Spain and Portugal.
Jerry is my name, write it like it's fame. Never been ashamed about how I got my name. My mom says it's my shine, love it till I die.
What is your name story?
What is your name story?
What's your name story?
What is your name story?
What is your name story?
Emma is a school social worker in a rural school district. Many of the youth in rural areas leave home because of their parents' substance abuse, only to become vulnerable to predators who eventually engage them in substance abuse. Emma helps these youth by facilitating a support and counseling group once per week. Landon is a civilian social worker who serves military families. He helps families adjust to transitions, in particular to the long periods of separation that are followed by the challenges of reintegration when a service member comes home. He also helps military families cope with domestic violence and substance abuse issues. Mark trains groups of adults who are interested in becoming foster parents. The curriculum he teaches covers basic parenting skills, information about the child welfare system, insights into the perspectives and experiences of children entering the foster care system, and content about child development, including the impact of neglect and sexual and physical abuse on child development. Lawrence is a chief administrator for a private not-for-profit substance abuse organization in an urban area on the East Coast. His agency provides outpatient treatment services, case management services, transitional housing, and life skills and job search programs for addicts. Tamika is a policy expert for a social work advocacy organization. She writes policies and lobbies Congress to incorporate social work policy positions into legislation. Her main areas of focus is healthcare reform and aging. These examples that I just read to you demonstrate how social workers have different target areas. Some of them include working with individuals, groups, families, communities, policies, or societies. We also have social workers who specialize in different areas, such as substance use, youth, elderly people, rural areas, community, rural or urban communities. The techniques that we use can be general or highly specialized, depending on what area you decide to work in. So a lot of times when you starting out, of course, you get your bachelor's degree. And then if you want to do more specialized training, you go on to get your master's degree. Now, there are different certifications you can get as well. But at the bachelor's level, you are really considered a generalist social worker who can intervene on a variety of different practice levels and in many different settings. So at the BSW level, you can work and practice in general settings, and you're really looking at addressing problematic interactions between a person and the environment in which they live in. Once you get to your master's degree, that's when you begin to specialize in different areas. So I wanted to take some time to kind of point out the differences in that and move on to some of the hallmarks of the BSW, or what we'll call today the generalist practitioner. So generalist practice is grounded in the liberal arts and the person environment construct. To promote human and social well-being, generalist practitioners use a range of prevention and intervention methods in their practice with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. The generalist practitioner identifies with the social work profession and applies ethical principles and critical thinking in their practice. As a general practitioner, you will also incorporate diversity in practice and advocate for human rights and social and economic justice. You also recognize, support, and build on the strengths and resilience of all human beings. As a general practitioner, you also look at research informed practice. That means that you look for practices and methods that have been researched and proven to be effective to work with that particular client. So as I mentioned on the previous screen, social workers at the BSW level are called generalist practitioners. And the goal of a generalist practitioner is to address problematic interactions between a person and their environment. And so how they meet those goals is listed here. They have to have a certain level of knowledge, which is earning their bachelor's degree. They have to have an understanding of different theoretical perspectives. They also have to know certain roles and skills, have the ability to determine a client's strength. They have to think beyond the current situation and really look at what's happening. And they also have to devise a plan for change, looking at the client's strengths and capitalizing on the client's existing resources or potential resources that may be effective for that particular client and their situation. And as I mentioned earlier, all of this is grounded in liberal arts. So, according to the Council on Social Work Education, a generalist practitioner uses a wide range of prevention and intervention methods in their practice with their client. And you remember, their client can be an individual, it can be a group, it can also be an organization or a community. So the generalist practitioner identifies with the social work profession and applies ethical principles and critical thinking in their practice. And we talked a little bit about this in chapter 1, but there are conceptual and theoretical frameworks that guide a social worker's practice, such as systems theory, ecological theory, empowerment theory, strengths perspective, and an evidence-based practice approach. So here are the 3 levels of practice. So the 3 areas in which a social worker as a generalist practitioner will practice in. So there are different levels of their practice. The first one is the micro, and that's where you're dealing with one-on-one or just one individual. Then the mezzo level is when you're working with families and groups. And then the macro level is where you're working with the organizations, communities, and you're doing lots of advocacy at the macro level. But just know, to be an effective social worker, you must be able to practice at all 3 of these levels, because you need to be able to look at a client. So if you have an individual client, look at that client, but also look at how that client interacts with their families or any other social groups that they're part of. And then you need to be able to look at any structural concerns in their community or within their environment that is impacting their ability to change. So now we're going to move to the change process. As you can see here, this is a picture of when summer turns to fall or turns to winter, when the trees become bare. And it was just a nice depiction of change. But we're going to talk about the process social workers use when they're working with a client, especially when the client is looking to change a behavior or change a situation. So the first step in the change process is engagement. And that's when the social worker uses empathy and other interpersonal skills to engage the client in the process. So essentially establishing a relationship with the client. So this may be using effective sharing. So you may share something that you observed with the client. You can also do a wide variety of things, really, to get the client to feel comfortable with you so they can begin to open up and be willing to walk through the rest of the processes. Actually, the engagement phase sets the tone for the entire change process. If the client doesn't feel comfortable with you, then they're not going to open up. Similar to how if you don't feel comfortable with your dentist or your doctor, if they haven't tried to have connect with you, then it's really hard for you to open up. The second step is assessment, and that's when social workers ask lots of questions. So question after question after question, similar to how you are at a job interview. They're asking you questions to get to know you. So the social worker not only asks questions about the problem, but they also are looking for some of the client's strengths. So kind of hearing some of the things the clients are good at, the resources that they may have to get them to where they want to go. You also are assessing the client's skills and their personality. And I'm sure the client is also assessing the social worker as well, seeing if this is a good fit for them to work with. So the client has a right to say, this social worker and I do not click, or we don't, it's not a good fit for me. So really, during this assessment phase, the client and the social worker can ask questions to really, for the social worker, getting to the problem and the strengths of the client. And for the client, they can assess the social worker's skills and personality to ultimately determine if it's a good fit for them to work with that particular social worker. We've written down the goals. Now it is time to put them into action. So this is the implementation stage. In the implementation stage, you can also adjust some of the goals too. So if you realize some of the things that are written down is not feasible or have to take longer, during the implementation stage, you can begin to make adjustments, but you're still moving towards your goals. So you're not giving up. You could just be making adjustments during this stage. So the implementation stage is really the last step in the change process, but there can also be times in which, for whatever reason, the client may not be able to achieve their goal alone. Initially, what a social worker wants to do is empower a client. So have the client call and see if that place is hiring, not the social worker call. Have the client call to make visitation arrangements. So you're giving the client resources and you're educating them on the process, but you're having them to actually do the work. Now, there are times in which a social worker has to advocate with the client, or on behalf of the client, depending on the situation. And there's a process for advocacy as well. So I'm going to talk to you about that next. So here's the advocacy process. Now, the advocacy process really can go for a wide variety of situations, but in our case, we're going to look at this through working with a client who needs you to advocate for them. Now, I have the different people here because sometimes it may take multiple people to advocate on behalf of the client. So you start off with defining what the problem is, recognizing the strengths of the client, developing partnerships if needed. So if you have to call an agency, speak with a social worker, develop a partnership and say, the two of us are going to help the client try to reach their goal. There may be times in which you have to lobby or there's a negotiation that happens. Researching, generating and consuming research is going to be important because you need to know what's looking at the full picture. Sometimes, depending on the type of advocacy you're doing, if it's for fundraising for large communities to get resources that they need, you may have to plan events or facilitate some type of social mobilization. So this is the advocacy process. You can look at it from the micro, mezzo, and macro level and use this as you advocate on behalf or with the client, because your goal is always to include the client in the process as much as you can, even if it means if you have to lobby, for example. You might want to take the client with you so the client can give an impact story, meaning the client will talk about how not receiving a particular resource impacted them. So you're always looking for ways to include the client in the process, but if it's not feasible, then you can develop a team and divide up the work and change can come about that way. Thank you all for walking through this lesson where we talked about social work and how social work principles and values can be involved in any area of work that you decide to do. I also gave you some information on generalist social work practice, which for those who are getting their bachelor's degree in social work, that's the specialization you will be competent in once you finish your degree. I'm happy to be on this journey with you as your instructor, and I hope the rest of your day and your week goes as you expect it to go. Take care.